Hi, this is a tutorial for the Next Stop Recommender researcher pages. As you can see here, we're at the welcome login screen, and there's several things that we can do from this spot. Firstly, I can register as a new user, and then once registering, I'd be able to use the service on my Android device or via the web application after logging in. Also, there's a download link for the Android APK file. Now, if I browse to this link from my device, it will let me download the application and install it onto my device directly from this site. So for today, let's log in using our admin credentials, and that will take us to the researcher pages. Now, you can see here, this is just a standard Google Maps page. I can pan. I can use the Google controls here to pan or zoom in or zoom out. And you see here these star icons are representing my destinations or locations of interest that the Next Stop Recommender application might recommend to a user. And I can click on these to get more information and center my map. Now, on the right-hand side here is my administrator search filter, and I can use this to search for information about users' wandering patterns and where they've gone and what type of location data that user is producing. And I can filter that by specific users, the time range that I want to search for, and some other more specific things. So we'll go through an example in a minute. And when I'm looking at this data, sometimes I might want to just move this panel out of the way, and I can do that just by clicking on this handlebar at the top here. So let's go through a search here and see what this brings up. We'll just search for this user. We'll leave the time range empty, so this should bring in all the user's results. And we're going to include location results and requests for recommendations. And we'll click submit, and we'll see what that gives us. So immediately we can see that there's a lot of information that's produced on this display. We can see the user's wandering pattern is highlighted via a red line here. If we have multiple users, they're going to have a different color line just to make it easy to tell them apart. And we can see these locations are recorded. These are the actual locations that were recorded by the phone, in this case, while the user was walking. And you can determine that by the icon. This is a GPS icon telling us that this location was recorded via the GPS on the phone. There's also an icon for QR code and also an icon for manual entry. So we can determine what type of method they were using to enter these locations. Now, if we zoom in here, we can see there's another type of icon. This is a star. This indicates that this user at this location was actually visiting this destination. Here we have a recommendation for this user. At this point, the user requested a recommendation, and it looks like it has a green check mark, which indicates that they followed that recommendation. So the Next Stop Recommender made a successful recommendation, and the user followed it. And we can see that it was this destination that the user went to next. Now, in another example, if the user had requested a recommendation, and in this case, there's a question mark. Now, that's indicating that the user recommended a recommendation and was recommended this destination, but the user hasn't since visited a destination, so we don't know whether that was successful or not. So there's just a question mark there. There's also a one with an X for an unsuccessful recommendation, meaning that the user did not follow that recommendation and went somewhere else. So maybe what we can do here is we'll open up this link, and what this does is let an administrator insert some sample data. So if I wanted to create some location data without having to go to all the trouble of having a user take their phone and go out and walk around, I could just go to this page, and as this user, let's find that location that was recommended. That's this one here. We'll maybe zoom in a little bit so you can see that. And what I'm going to do is just click on the map to drop a pin, and you can see I've got my latitude and longitude have already been created for me. And then I can pick up this pin and move it to exactly where I want it to go. Now that user has just visited this location. We're going to press submit here, and that will enter that data into the database as if the user had actually visited that location. Okay, and now when we go back and re-perform our search again, you'll notice that this recommendation is now successful because the user has visited that location. Okay, we can also do multiple user searches. So maybe I'll bring in a user 1 here as well, and we will we'll do a search for 2 users. Now we can see this is the first user. Now the second user in blue, you can see they had a similar wandering pattern, except for user 1 took this higher road path and went to this destination. So there's quite a lot of information. If you want to maybe filter it out, maybe you don't want to see all these intermediate locations, you can turn those off, and you can also turn off the recommendations if you don't care to see that, in which case you just get the visits to the destinations, which makes it quite a lot easier to view the information. Also, as an administrator, you can view the PHP My Admin, which is just a view into the database. Now, I'm going to log in with my password, and I can see here's the database for the next stop recommender, and I can go in here and look at locations. I can see my destinations. Could create new ones if I want to, or I could do some more advanced SQL queries if I want to. So that's just a direct link right into the database if you need to have access to something like that. So that's the user page, the researcher pages. Thanks for your interest.